This podcast is sponsored by RBC, with nearly 9 out of 10 business owners feeling confident about recuperating quickly from setbacks. A recent poll from RBC reveals that resilience and optimism in the face of challenges continue to be the hallmark characteristics of Canadian entrepreneurs. But when business is anything but usual, entrepreneurs need support that goes beyond traditional banking to successfully reopen and manage their business. Now, entrepreneurs can access all of RBC's practical tips, insights, money-saving offers, and solutions to support their e-commerce, digital payments, payroll management, employee wellness needs, and more, all in one place. To learn more, check out the RBC Small Business Navigator Hub, available online at www.rbc.com/small business navigator. For practical resources, advice, and offers, you can also visit RBC's Small Business Navigator Hub at www.rbc.com/small business navigator.
Welcome to Canada's podcast, the #1 podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs.
Hi, this is Angela Fay coming to you from Canada's podcast with Mitch Jacobson from Rviita. And a little bit about Mitch, because he actually produces his product here in British Columbia, but base camp head office is out of Alberta. So we are entirely a Western Canada company here with Mitch. So with no further ado, I'd like you to introduce yourself, Mitch, and say welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Angela. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast. It's an absolute honor. You guys do so much for local entrepreneurs, and I really appreciate the opportunity. So my name is Mitch Jacobson. I'm the founder of Rviita Energy Tea, and you're right, we're a Western Canadian company where our product is actually made in Burnaby, but we're currently headquartered out of Calgary, Alberta. I've lived in both places, so really passionate about both provinces and helping as many people as we can in those provinces. So what is Rviita? So Rviita is a blend of black or green tea, so natural caffeine from black or green tea, fruit juices, and some organic honey. And it's really low calorie, healthy afternoon pick-me-up. I created this company with my business partners, Rob and Carly, because one, we're really passionate about health and fitness, but we were working downtown and we could never find a healthy alternative to coffee and energy drinks, working those really long days. And then we had a really close friend of ours, he actually suffered a minor heart attack from chemical sugar-filled energy drinks. And so that was really what the catalyst for the idea was, is why isn't someone producing a healthy alternative with clean, natural ingredients? So we got to work 3 years ago and we launched the company back in October. And we've been
wow. So October 2019 you launched?
October 2019. So it was a couple years in the making, very new company, but we're very fortunate that we've had a great response from our customers, and it's been a great start.
So I've had the privilege of learning a little bit more about your entrepreneurial journey. So let's just dive in a little bit deeper. So you came from, you've got an engineering degree, is that right?
Petroleum engineering degree, you bet.
So how does a petroleum engineer turn out to be an energy drink producer? What was that path?
A great question. So, it's funny, and Rob's a geophysicist and Carly, she's a nurse. So none of us have any related experience whatsoever to this industry. And, my one takeaway from that is don't allow the I don't know excuse to get the best of you. If you just take it day by day and you're willing to make mistakes, it's amazing what you can accomplish. So yeah, I was working in oil and gas downtown, loved the industry, but I was always, like I said, really passionate about health and fitness and going to the gym and putting the right things in my body. So it kind of started really just screwing around in my kitchen, mixing some ingredients together. I figured out pretty quick that I am not a food scientist, did not know what I was doing. So early on in our journey, we decided to hire a food scientist actually based out of Vancouver. And we worked with them over the course of kind of the first 2 years. So yeah, to answer your question, being a petroleum engineer, we had to get some professional help to come up with the formula because I didn't have any background in that.
Now you have more than one formula. Now, and in all fairness, that Mitch, you were absolutely charming and sent me some samples to test. So I've had the privilege of being able to take some of the drinks out, rock climbing and hiking and things, which are awesome. But how many flavors do you have?
Yeah, so we originally launched with one flavor. It was called Divine Berry, and it was a strawberry black tea. And then in February, we launched Midnight Blackberry. And that was, just a great seller. I think it was a great alternative to the original. It was just slightly sweeter, even though it was the same amount of calories. And actually just this last week, we launched our 2 new SKUs. So it's Elderberry, Royal Elderberry, and Speechless Peach Green Tea. So that's our biggest innovation yet, because instead of just using caffeine from black tea, we're actually using green tea this time mixed with peach. And so far, everyone's saying it's our best yet.
So let's talk about the drink itself a little bit, because this is not Red Bull, right? This is more natural ingredients, but it has that same effect. Is that right? That it's got that punch of some caffeine and some other nutrients in there to give you a sort of a lift?
Exactly. Brilliant question. You're right. This is not Red Bull. We are a natural product, and we wanted to use clean, simple ingredients. You read our ingredient label on the back, and everyone's going to be able to understand them all. So what we found early on is you got coffee on this one side, which is, a natural caffeine source. And then you got the energy drinks of the world on the total opposite end of the spectrum, right? They got chemicals full of sugar. What's bridging that gap? What is clean, natural ingredients that, you don't want to drink coffee in the afternoon because you want something different, you want something more refreshing. So that's what Rviita is. So the caffeine actually comes from tea. And I didn't know this until I got into this, but tea naturally contains amino acids such as L-theanine and some tannins. And what those amino acids do is they actually combine with caffeine to prolong the effects and reduce the crash. There's a lot of research showing the benefits of combining L-theanine and caffeine. And so one of the number one feedback we get from our product is this natural caffeine that they get from the tea. They're not experiencing that same crash they would get with, say, an energy drink or from coffee. So it's caffeine from tea, and then we just sweetened it with a little bit of organic honey. So only 6 grams of sugar per serving and only 30 calories for the entire package.
Awesome. And so talk to me about the packaging a little bit. You've gone with a soft package. How did you come up with that?
Great question. And, this is where my engineering background, helped us a little bit. One of the things I noticed, being in oil and gas is everyone, or a lot of times people just they don't look at the life cycle of a product when they consider how environmental sustainable it is. So cans and glass bottles, they're great because oftentimes they're infinitely recyclable. But if you look at the life cycle of those products, they're really heavy, they take up a lot of space. Their energy efficiency over the life cycle maybe isn't the best. Could there be another solution? And one of these packages that we saw to try and solve this problem, which was taken off in Asia and Europe, is the flexible beverage pouch. No one's really using it in North America yet, but it's a brilliant packaging because it can be shipped flat, doesn't take up as much space shipping. So there's so many carbon emission savings over the life cycle of the product. And then it's also recyclable. So we were just really excited about this. We figured we truly believe it's the best packaging for the environment, and we wanted to introduce it to the North American market, which is why it looks a little bit different. It drinks exactly like a water bottle, but it's shipped flat, and when you're done with it, you can actually reuse it as an ice pack, or you can just roll it up. It doesn't take a lot of space when you're hiking or mountain climbing.
Well, and I hadn't, and that's how I've used it so far. So thank you for that. But also, I hadn't thought of the idea of reusing it as an ice pack. That's pretty brilliant.
Yeah, thank you. It's kind of a secondary bonus. We actually just partnered with some meal prep companies who now, instead of having to ship these disposable ice packs with their food that they're shipping out, they're just using a Rviita. So someone gets a drink, they can reuse it again as an ice pack, and then there's less of those ice packs actually going into the garbage. So we're really excited about some of those initiatives.
Well, and sorry, I've just got to go down that rabbit hole a little bit. You said you're partnering with some people on some projects as far as providing meals?
Yeah, so there's some meal prep companies in Calgary. So one of them is Nutri-Meals. So they're, a meal prep company. So someone will order their entire meals for the week. And normally how this company would do it is they would ship you your meals with, say, FedEx or UPS, but they'd have to put it in, an insulated container with ice packs. But now instead of using the ice packs, they're putting Rviita in there. So they're displacing those ice packs, which usually just get thrown out. So it's great because less waste.
Okay.
These people get a drink and then they can reuse the package again as another ice pack. Yeah.
So just on that tiny example, do the Rviitas go frozen then and serve as ice packs during the actual delivery process?
You betcha. So they freeze the Rviita, throw it in the meal. By the time it gets there, it's thawed out. You have your afternoon pick-me-up and your meals are cold.
Okay. That's so awesome. Cool. Now I'm a little bit curious about this, actually producing your products in Burnaby. Tell me a little bit about the advantages of BC production.
So BC has some amazing manufacturing in the Burnaby and Vancouver area. So I know it's a real hub for food manufacturing, and
Okay.
we've looked for different manufacturing opportunities all over the country, and we found that Vancouver and Burnaby continually comes back to be the best. And because our packaging is so specialized, there's really not a lot of people doing this type of manufacturing because it requires specialized equipment. So that's why we're based in Burnaby. I actually went to high school in Penticton too, so BC is near and dear to my heart.
Cool.
And we absolutely love being out there in the Lower Mainland.
Well, and when you were doing your research as far as production, you were just looking at Canadian options, or were you kind of looking further afield for production opportunities?
So we looked kind of all over North America. We
Okay.
did interview some companies in the United States, but what we found was, Vancouver is super strong with their food science and their manufacturing. And being a Canadian company, it was so important to us that we are actually made in Canada. We take a lot of pride in being a local company, and we want to provide opportunities and employment to people in our own country, and especially over in the West Coast here. So that was something that ultimately factored into our decision to keeping everything in.
Well, and I'm also a little bit curious as far as your view on, there's rumors and of course real life practical challenges right now with supply chain management. Are you experiencing any particular challenges there as far as either in your production or in your distribution?
So we sure did initially. So when COVID-19 first
Yeah.
hit, it was some scary months, and we were wondering, are we going to be able to get production runs? But what fortunately happened was a lot of the food manufacturers, especially in Vancouver, they were deemed, of course, an essential service. And so we didn't see too much of an interruption in our supply chain.
Right.
There were some delays on packaging and ingredients, but overall, we didn't end up shorting any stores. We were able to get product to our customers when they needed it.
Nice. And so, Mr. Petroleum Engineer, you've probably learned an awful lot about the food industry in the last year and a half. What have been some of the most surprising both challenges and opportunities that have risen to the surface for you?
That is such a great question. Like you said, being in the petroleum industry, you don't, you go to grocery stores, 4 or 5 times a week, but you never really think about how the food actually gets there. So going into this business, I didn't even know what a distributor was. I didn't know how food got onto the shelves in grocery stores. So it says something about where we started. So I think the biggest thing I've learned is about the distribution game. So how do you get your product to stores? How do you get it into people's hands? And how that whole supply chain and value chain piece actually works. And I got to say, there's some incredible distributors out on the West Coast here, especially, we're using one that's Calgary, Vancouver based. They've done an incredible job for us. So I'd say that's my number one learning, is how to deal with distributors and make sure that you're getting your product as widely distributed as possible so you can help as many people as possible. And the biggest challenge is just making sure you have enough margin to support, your distributors and your brokers and your stores, because everyone, needs to make money, and we need to create jobs and opportunities, and you got to make sure that you're managing that at the end of the day so that you can stay.
Mitch, did you have any professional insight or incubation program or mentors in that process to make sure, I mean, that's a key comment you made about having enough margins to cover each one of those pieces. And the food supply chain is not simple, right? It's not a digital exchange. Like this is very quick with one platform. It's actually quite complicated. What were your best sources of information, mentorship, advice along the way?
You know what? Rviita was really born out of a single book. So it was called the Beverage Bible. It's called the Beverage Bible, and it's just this incredible book that I read. I got it off of Amazon, at the very beginning, and it sort of explained some of those points. But you know what? A lot of it is just learned by trial and learned by making mistakes. So we've made a ton of mistakes, and I think screwing things up has been my greatest mentor, because we have, we've just learning from distributors, learning from retailers, and the Sobeys and the co-ops of the world, those store managers have been incredible. A lot of times I just have to come to them with humility and say, hey, I don't know how this works. Can you help me? And they've been really great in supporting us with that.
And so tell me a little bit about where you can find your products. Are they in those bigger stores, like those your grocery stores? Or tell me a little bit about where we can find you.
You bet. So we're pushing almost 200 stores between Alberta, BC, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan now. So in the Vancouver area, we're in Choices Market. We're in the Kelowna Safeway. We're going to hopefully start popping up in some more Sobeys and Safeway throughout BC. In Alberta, we're in Calgary Co-op. We're in some of the federated co-ops. We're in Sobeys, Safeways, soon to be in some Save-On Foods throughout the two provinces. So we're very fortunate that a lot of these, big chain retailers have supported our local business and brought us into their local program, and we've got distribution through that.
So if you could give or offer any insight or advice, obviously food manufacturing, whether it's artisan, boutique, or new products or innovative products like where we're having to get, higher proteins and higher, nutritional value into a smaller package. I think there's going to be a wave of startups and pivots into those sectors. And as people are watching your story, could you offer any insight or advice to those people who are in that rethinking stage from what you've learned?
Absolutely. And, it's such an amazing space to be in the food and beverage space. I think there's more opportunity in this than ever before. And the number one piece of advice that I would give you is, one, you have to have the highest quality product. Absolutely. It's got to taste amazing. It's got to have amazing ingredients. But you know what? That's actually the easiest part. That's the smallest part of the equation. The biggest part is, once you get it in the stores, how are you going to make sure people are buying your product? Because just because you have the most amazing product doesn't mean someone's going to grab it off the shelf. You got to make sure your packaging stands out. You got to make sure your marketing is in line. What are you doing with your social media? How are you supporting the stores? So I think really reverse engineering your business strategy. And what I mean by that is, start with your marketing and who's going to be buying your product, and then really design your package and your product and your brand so that it applies to those people, so that once you get your amazing product on the shelves, people are going to be buying it, and you're going to get those turns, and you're going to be able to support the Sobeys and co-ops and Save-On Foods of the world. Because that's what really matters. Is doesn't matter how great your product is, if it doesn't move, it's not going to be successful.
Right. And Mitch, who's your people?
Who's my people?
Yeah, who's your buyer? Who's your key audiences?
Yeah, so our target market is sort of that, that 20 to 50-year-old health conscious consumer. And what we found that's really interesting is we see 60 to 70% of our target demographic is women. So we've really appealed, to the feminine, and we've tried to come across, really, neutral in our branding and our marketing. So we're really going after, anyone who really cares about what they're putting in their body, cares about health and fitness, going to the gym. And we're finding too that we have, an even broader influence than we thought. So a lot of people who would normally drink really sugary energy drinks, they know at the end of the day, that's probably not the best thing to put in their body.
Right.
So we've seen some people who probably maybe normally wouldn't, shop at a health food store, but they want to try our product because they want a healthy alternative. Thankfully, society is shifting towards, a more health conscious buyer. People are caring more about their bodies than ever before. And we're trying to provide a great product, a great energy product that's a great alternative to what's out there in the market.
I'm just going to write down great energy. There's something in that for me and you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So a question a little bit about trends that you see. So, and I know you're in this launch and getting really out of the gates in many respects with a range of products and flavors. But trends that you see coming in the pipeline that maybe other people aren't aware of, that you are cognizant of given your individual Mitch background? What do you see coming down the pipeline?
So I think what I just talked about, that health conscious consumer, that's been a trend for a while, and that's going to continue. When we're in grocery stores, we're amazed at the type of questions we're asked by just the everyday consumer. Like, hey, what's in your natural flavors? Where's your organic honey coming from? Where is this ingredient coming from? So I think that health consciousness is going to go to a whole new level where people aren't just going to look at, how much sugar and how many calories are in a product, but they're actually going to ask, okay, where does this ingredient come from? Why are you putting this in? I don't know what this ingredient is, so I'm not going to buy that product. So I think that's the future wave of consumer buying in grocery stores. And number two, I think environmental sustainability, it's already a trend, but I think it's going to become ever more relevant in people's minds, and people are going to start looking more at the life cycle of products. they're going to look at, aluminum cans. That's great. They're infinitely recyclable. But, these bauxite mines where the aluminum comes from, are those the best thing for the planet? Is
Right.
there better alternatives? How are these cans being transported? How are these glass bottles being transported? How are these, flexible beverage pouches being transported and their carbon emissions? So I think just that overall heightened sense of awareness of the consumer is going to increase, especially over this next, 3, 4, 5, 10 years. People are going to ask more and more questions, and they're going to want to put better and better products into their body.
Well, and you're not the first person to suggest those two trends too, by the way, as both the food source up until consumption, and then the post consumption, what happens on the other side. And I was talking to some other companies who are obviously in the tech and innovation space as well in food production, and they were talking about like this microchip that could be placed on packaging, where a consumer can kind of, with their phone, hover over it and actually pop up the whole entire story of Mitch and, your founding ingredients and where they're grown, and almost like, I don't want to use the word so it's interpreted out of context. Oh, but it's almost like contact tracing the concept all the way from, seed to consumption to where the cans or the packaging going, or not cans, your packaging going afterwards is a really cool, maybe value added opportunity for you coming out of the gates.
I think that's such an amazing idea. I'm going to write that down too. We've actually been talking about, a scannable barcode on our package that sends people to our story, because we always say here, when we have, our company meetings, is people don't buy what you do or what you have, they buy why you do it. People want to buy the story. They want to buy, the bigger mission and the bigger purpose. And we want to make sure that we're constantly grounded in that. And that's the message that we're getting out to our customers.
So what are you reading, or what are your sources of innovation and business now? Are you listening to podcasts or reading media or going to conferences at some point, learning to keep you abreast of what's happening in your world?
Absolutely. So a huge proponent of reading. I try and have a book in my hand every day. All of us at Rviita here do. But I'd say probably the biggest source of innovation for us is customer feedback. So it's, before COVID, when we were standing in grocery stores, giving out samples, you'd be amazed what people would say, right? And they'd give you feedback, and you'd start to think about it, and you'd go home because, ultimately, our customers are what make Rviita possible. So we need to listen to them. So that's our biggest source of innovation is we're constantly hearing trends. We're hearing continual suggestions with, new flavor ideas, new, packaging improvements. So for us, innovation always comes back to, who's enjoying our product and who we create it for.
And I heard you say, so you were doing some in-store demos before? Yeah, great. And how are you gaining customer feedback now, today? What's your strategy?
So it's, we can't sample in stores anymore. So we, when COVID first hit, we were really upset by that, because that was our main marketing channel. And so we sat down and we said, okay, well, how can we do this without actually standing in a grocery store? And so one of the first things we did is said, why don't we support the people on the front lines of COVID? And so we put out some posts on Instagram. We said, hey, anyone in Calgary and area who is, working in a hospital or working on the front lines, we're going to personally deliver samples to your house. So instead of actually sampling at a grocery store, now we're just doing, direct to you samples in the Calgary area. And we cannot believe the overwhelming response we got. And it felt so good, because not only are we helping these people, but on the back end, they're coming back to us and they're saying, hey, I love the blackberry flavor, but, what about peach? Could you guys work on a peach flavor? 6 months later, we got a peach launch to market. So instead of sampling in stores, we're just doing more, online opportunities and delivering opportunities.
And is there any major pivots that you've had to make within your internal sort of back of house business systems in 2020 in this unexpected, strange environment?
We sure did. So, what I was just telling, Rob and Carly the other day, as difficult as COVID has been, and it's, obviously it's been horrendous for many families and Canada and the US, it's been a blessing in a way for us, because it forced us to reevaluate so many things about our business. It forced us to take a high level look about what we were doing when COVID hit, and then pivot and change our distribution strategy. So we were direct distributing to a lot of stores, when COVID first hit, which means, we're actually hand delivering it or, FedExing it to a store. Shortly after that, we realized we need some help. So we hired an amazing Calgary distribution company here that's helping us now with our distribution, and it's really just changed everything for us. And then as far as marketing, because we can't do, the more hand-to-hand marketing stuff where we're giving out samples, now we're doing it all online. So we're shipping samples to people. We're using, coupons, things like that. We're doing giveaways with stores, to help them support their sales. So it's actually allowed us to, spend a little less time in stores and just be a little bit more strategic with our marketing efforts. And we've had a larger reach, and we're able to help more people. So as much bad has come out of COVID, it's been a blessing in disguise in some ways.
Well, if you could wave a magic wand and three amazing things, well, let's go two amazing things could come from us participating in this podcast together. What would they be? What leads or opportunities would you love to just fall into your lap right now?
You know what? That's a great question. So number one is, our biggest challenge is always, how do we get the word out there? We want to tell our story, to have maybe, a different retail chain hear our story and want to potentially partner with us, or, customers that want some samples that we could send them to, or are interested in ordering it from us online. We want to help people, and we want to get our story out there. So that's number one. And number two, like I said, we're a purpose, mission-driven company. And if our story inspires someone else to make a great change in their life, or maybe start a business, or maybe make some positive, health changes in their life, that's our ultimate reward, and that's our ultimate paycheck, is helping people. So those would be the two big things that would be great to come out of this podcast.
Well, and I have somebody that I'd love to connect you with who is all about that second purpose-driven mission, who has been on a previous podcast. So I will connect you guys. You're going to love each other's energy, and you just never know what might pop out of that. So it's
I would love that. Thank you.
Sharing each other's stories here in Canada about what amazing business things are happening on the ground. Mitch, it has been an absolute pleasure learning about the evolution of your product. And thank you again for the opportunity to taste it. And I would encourage anybody else to try, who is in that fitness market, to give it a try. I look forward to it.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all you do for Canadian small business. We're really fortunate to have your podcast, and it's been an honor.